we've grown up about that.
And I kept marrying. First March on Washington. Went and wonderful. And second March on Washington. 2 young men called me and said, Reverend Perry, would you come with us? Would you do a demonstration on marriage? And I said, absolutely. And they were both dying of AIDS. And I went and I took one look and I said, I so believe in this. And everybody there knew it. I mean, it was that way. All right, next March on Washington, the 2 young men had died. I immediately took the demonstration. Ended up, the last time I did it, with 10,000 couples, 25,000 of their friends throwing the rice and screaming, gay marching band, playing all the marriage music, you know, I mean, in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And they taped it, the government did, and used it in the tapes you could buy in the gift shop of different civil rights groups. Didn't have no other gay person, but they showed our wedding in front of the thing. And it was hysterical because I was getting ready to sue because they turned me down and said, you can't use it in front of the IRS building like you have because we can't block these 2 major streets here around the White House. And I'd use the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, because I always said, my partner and I pay more taxes than anybody else. We send everybody else's kids to school. Now, I don't mind that, but by God, you're going to treat me like everybody else. And I mean, that was always my argument. So here we get up, and the religious right attacked the Parks Department for showing the civil rights demonstration from the Lincoln Memorial, where so many of us meet because he was the great emancipator around slavery in America and was assassinated because of that. And here was these mob-scene crowds, and people in the gay community made fun of me, say, oh, Reverend Moon has arrived. I said, if you will read what I say, it's the demonstration called The Wedding. Everybody here understands that I can't give them marriage certificates, but it did. I just had them printed up from our church, and people by the thousands to this day hold that up as their marriage certificate. That they got it from MCC. They were married by Reverend Troy Perry. And
you and Philip got married.
Philip.
when and where did you 2 get married?
Well, I was going to talk about this myself in the morning.
But that's fine.
No, I mean, just to give you an idea, but I'll go ahead. I know, I'll just tell you. Here I'm sitting in my home, 2006, when once they announced the Supreme Court has struck down the sodomy laws. And I, oh, Philip, come in here, come in here, come in here. What is it, what is it, what is it? He comes in, oh, you won't believe this. Now, my partner, he fights for his rights, but he is not like, you know, he doesn't live and breathe this like I do whenever you have to leave this thing. And so I said, the Supreme Court, do you know what this means? My God, a month later, they announced on TV our church had won the lawsuit in the country of Canada for marriage. MCC Toronto. I said, Philip, this happens a lot in my house. Watch Mom. I said, you won't believe this. I said, they just said we could marry in Canada. We're going up there and get married. Took me a week to do it. It dawned on me, I haven't asked him to marry me yet. And I went home and got down on one knee. He always tells the story. And I broke down crying. It was the most emotional moment outside of founding the denomination in my life. I mean, I tell people I've been arrested in front of the White House. That was during AIDS because the President Reagan wouldn't read the report. And I've been invited into the White House by 3 living presidents, sitting presidents, into the White House. So I kept people know that my integrity is intact because I'm not afraid of being arrested once you get over that fear. And I got over the fear of death very early on. I mean, I used to have people threaten to murder me. I had a guy jump up when we were leading our demonstration from San Francisco to the state capitol, take a beer bottle, break it, tried to stab me with it. Cops, undercover cops who were there, upset that I was there, didn't know this was going to happen. They then had to come out of the closet because they had to hit the stage running to tackle this guy. I've had people shoot at me one time. Had a guy pull a gun, threaten kill me because I was doing a wedding, and it was hysterical. I've always said, here I am, and it was 2 lesbians marrying that I was marrying, and my God, when this guy came in, threatened to shoot me to stop the wedding because it was his sister getting married. Honey, one of those lesbians tackled him, wrestled that gun away from him, had him in handcuffs. I mean, I don't even know where she got the handcuffs, and kicked him out of the house. And here I am, in the middle of nowhere, as I say, and doing this setting, and it happened, but I didn't care. And you walk into hell for heavenly causes. Man of La Mancha said, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And so here Philip and I immediately go home, get down on one knee, asked him to marry me, go down crying. Then he had to help me get up. I'm getting in that age. And always laugh and say, and I said, we're going to go up. And I called Brent Hawks, our pastor there, and said, we want a quick marriage. I called the city hall in Toronto and said, I knew the answer, but I wanted to make sure. I said, can Americans come up and marry? Oh, yes. We're thrilled to death, Niagara Falls, etc. And I said, okay. And I just took it on faith that they had just passed the law, but we were going to get married. And of course, when we got there, I told Andy about this. I said, and Ian, I said, it was amazing to me. 2 city council members came to welcome us to Canada. The press rushed them. And they had the headlines of the papers all over Canada. My quote, thank God for Canada. And it was the middle of a SARS epidemic. And they were thrilled when I said, I want Americans to come to Canada and get married. I want them up here by the thousands. They were thrilled. They thought, tourism, here we go. So Canada, I'm one of those places where early on I went to and was invited by the founder of the gay rights movement in Canada, he and his partner, to come to New York University. And Philip and I tell the pastor, we want a quiet wedding. I don't want people there, just our best friend. Well, the pastor let folks who were members of the Founders 500, you're invited to the wedding. So when we got there, here's a church. It's in the middle of the week, in the daytime, early in the morning. I didn't know anybody was going to be there. And there's 150 people in the sanctuary of the church. We wouldn't let TV cameras. I would not. I said, you can talk to me after this, but this is real to me. And this is not a show, so you do not. I could kick myself today for not having the church take films. Because today it's a little different. I wish I had footage from them. But the Canadians love me because I debated Jerry Falwell on national television in Canada.
Jerry Falwell is?
Jerry Falwell was the worst, the president and the founder of the moral majority in America, who fought us tooth and nail with Anita Bryant, started the Save Our Children fight. And we thought it was, when it got to California, we lost everywhere else. And we thought, oh my God, they're good. And we had this stupid state senator who was going to fire. He wanted a law, was trying to get it passed to fire a gay, lesbian school teacher in the state of California. He didn't know about transgender. That wasn't even on his radar. And bisexuals. And the way the law was written, any kid could say, she's a dyke. He's a faggot. And they had to be removed from their classes right then and put on leave. And the union said, whoa. And when I was telling the story earlier about, thank God for the African-American lieutenant governor, who thank God I'd met, and we were able to do this. Ronald Reagan was running for president. And we finally found out Ronald Reagan, we had a mother who, her son was a gay school teacher, and he'd been Teacher of the year before, named by the state of California as Teacher of the Year. They held him up. And this mother wrote a letter to Ronald Reagan, who was running for president, and said, dear Governor, you remember we were your next door neighbors, our kids played together. You remember John, my son. Well, John is a teacher, and John is a gay man. This law is going to see that young man who played with your children and who we babysitted for you, you know what I mean? He's going to be fired from his job. And then we said, we got to talk to Ronald Reagan. How do we get in to see him? And finally, we found a way to do it through this mother. And immediately, they then said we could go. Their party said we could see him. And he said, I don't agree with this law. We said, speak out. He said, well, of course, politics. He said, either I'll talk about it, or I'll come out against it, or I won't say anything. But I'm not coming out for it. And thank God, 2 weeks before the election, a month before the election, Ronald Reagan came out against the law in 600 newspapers in America saying why this would destroy the school system in the state of California. We have laws on the books. We don't need this. And but my God, like that, John Briggs' money dried up. He and his political fight, $1 million in debt. You know, I debated him on television. Harvey Milk, if you've seen the movie Milk, debated. You know, he went to Orange County. I had to do it all over the place. You know, and I debated those fundamentalists. The last one was MCC, School Out for Gay School Teachers. And they had me debate, you know, John Briggs. He brought in his 3 people. I had my 3 people. His was a woman who looked like she was going to give birth on the stage. You know, I didn't know if they needed a heterosexual. You know, this woman, he wanted to prove she was heterosexual. And he had the school superintendent from LA, which shocked me. But I had the president of the school for the state of California on my side. I had picked my 3 people to go with me. And it was amazing as we talked and as the debate went on. And I finally, of all things, the union representative on my side, the president of the teachers union for the state of California, I said, what is the superintendent? He said, oh, he doesn't believe we need the law. I said, what? He said, oh, if you ask him, he'll tell you. I waited until there was a minute left. And I said, oh, by the way, I have one last question. And I asked the superintendent, is there a need for this law? And he said, no. And Briggs started saying, wait a minute, John, just upset. And with Ronald Reagan, the money dried up.